Right, it is the international break, which means that for the next 11 days, Chelsea fans are unfortunately going to be absolutely starved of club football. But here's the good news for you. You are not going to be starved of content coming from the channel, because I'm going to work very hard to make some form of content for you guys, because as we know, you don't really want the international football stuff, and Chelsea aren't playing for a little while now, but we're going to try and make it work. And in today's video, I am going to rate the start to the season for every single player that has played at least 1 minute so far under Enzo Maresca for Chelsea Football Club this season. But people, before we get into all that, welcome back to the Joey Knight podcast. If you are new around here, at the end of the video, if you like the content and you want to see more from myself, please hit the subscribe button right now. Please smash the like button before we do anything. Now you've done it, let's get into it. Right, I did specify at the start of the video that every player I speak about needs to have made at least 1 appearance or played at least 1 minute under Enzo Maresca this season, but we can't ignore the elephant in the room, and that is obviously David Washington. No, I'm joking. It's Reece James. He hasn't played any football so far this season. Shock horror. He is injured. Gutting for us Chelsea fans, because I'd love to see him in here. I'm fascinated by what Enzo Maresca would actually do with Reece James. Would he be the inverted fullback? Would he be part of a flat back three, as we've seen with Cucurella, who I actually expected to be inverting a lot more than he has? You lot tell me. Do you think there'll ever be a time when Reece James is actually playing league football week in, week out, and he's not constantly coming in and out of the squad with injuries and rehabilitation periods and whatnot? It's really hard, because I've spoke about players that have managed to get over career-threatening injuries before on this podcast, but I don't think I've known a player to have had the same amount of persistency with his injuries than Reece James. Now, when Reece James is on the field, he is without doubt one of the best fullbacks in the world. But there was a little while ago, maybe a season or two ago, when I was constantly having a debate with my friends over Trent and Reece, and now it's really, really hard for me to ever speak to any of those friends anymore. No, I'm joking. It's very hard for me to have that debate, because the best ability is availability, and Reece isn't showing any availability at the minute. So, gutting situation for him. But let's move on to the players who have been showing at least a little bit of availability and at least picking up some form of minutes. And I've actually ranked this in players, or I've made the list where I'm going to rate these players in terms of how many minutes they've actually played. So let's start off with Chukwuemeka, who's played 14 minutes this season so far. I can't lie to you, I thought he would have played so much more. Chukwuemeka was a man who featured in pre-season pretty heavily, and I even remember back to the Wrexham game in pre-season, I think he was the only player that wasn't bought off of the pitch, and every showing that I saw from Carney looked really impressive. In fact, when I look back at his Chelsea career so far, every time I've seen Chukwuemeka in a Chelsea shirt, I can honestly say I have never been disappointed. I've 90% of the time been impressed. Sometimes been really impressed. I remember with the cameo when he came off the bench against Enzo Maresca's Leicester side, linked up with Cole Palmer. I think Cole Palmer got the assist, and Chukwuemeka scored the goal that at the time put us in the lead. I think it put us 3-2 up. It was Noni Madueke that then went through and scored a screamer when he wriggled out of a few players after that. But Chukwuemeka has always been a player that has impressed me. So really, can I use the word gutted? Disappointed that we haven't got to see more of him, but I do think that at the end of the day, sometimes you have to be cruel to be kind, and I think that Enzo Maresca understands to get the best out of this squad, we are going to have to cut ties with a lot of the players in the squad, and that means that there will be some fan favourites, there will be some players that you and me really like that end up leaving, as we've already seen with the likes of Conor Gallagher on a permanent transfer, Trevor Chalobah, a player that I myself love, on a loan transfer, and it looks like the lack of minutes, especially now that Carney is available, means that maybe we won't see much of Carney Chukwuemeka. What I would say is he missed, I think, the game before last with illness. Maybe we'll see a little bit more from him. Maybe we will. He's only been included in the squad once. One man that has been included in the squad twice and has got 27 minutes is Josh Achampong. Now, he's listed here as a right back. I think he can play anywhere in that back three. I'm not going to go too deep on Achampong. I think he's a good player. I liked what I saw of him in pre-season, but I haven't seen enough of him yet, and we haven't really had any need to see any more of him than we've seen. There's maybe one or two times that you could argue that potentially against Barrow in the Cup or maybe in the Europa Conference League he could have been used, and in his place Axel Disasi has been used. Now Axel Disasi may be a player, and we'll come on to him, that ends up needing to leave the club, or we need to get him out of the club to smallen down the squad size, but at the moment I would still put him ahead of Achampong. He's got much more top flight experience. So Achampong, decent enough, but what can you really expect? One man we would have expected to see so much more of. He's got 45 minutes of football under his belt so far this season, is Ben Chilwell. Where did it go so wrong for Ben Chilwell? I never thought there would be a period of time when Ben Chilwell was still contracted to Chelsea Football Club that we went as long without seeing him, and it wasn't because of injury. Because me and you both know that both Reece and Ben, it's almost like Tuchel run these boys into the ground, because since he left, they've hardly played. And Ben Chilwell, when he did play last season, had real mixed results, didn't he? Some matches he really didn't play well in, and some matches he played pretty well in. There was one game where he played phenomenal, and that was against Middlesbrough. It was our replay in, I believe, the semi-finals of the Cup. It would have had to have been to have a replay, because we lost the first match 1-0, won the second match 6-1, I think it was. I was at that game, and Ben Chilwell, for me, was our man of the match. And here's the mad thing about it. He played that game inverting into midfield. So he was our man of the match in a game where he was doing something that Enzo Maresca also desperately wants from his fullbacks. But here's the problem for Chile. I think that continuity is something that Enzo Maresca values highly amongst his starting 11, amongst his squad, and I think that's why we're able to guess the starting 11 week in, week out at the moment. And if you are to tinker with it, you need to tinker with it, in my opinion, with players that you can hang your hat on when it comes to that availability. So let's say, for example, now Enzo Maresca started raising the question of, who's better out of Cucurella and Ben Chilwell? Well, for me, definitely Cucurella. But if he started to experiment with that and put Chilwell ahead of, let's say, for example, Renato Vega, who we know can play in that role, then he could do that. Ben Chilwell gets ruled out of another long-term injury like we've seen as soon as he starts racking up minutes on the pitch, and then he can unsettle the rest of the players. So I do think that Enzo Maresca is doing somewhat of a juggling act in this moment, and I think that as much as it might hurt a lot of us, being that he's a Champions League winner for Chelsea Football Club, one of the very few we have left on our books, by the way, I think that cruel to be kind is probably the right phrase you would give this. And I actually think that we're seeing so far, we're not really missing Ben Chilwell all that much, you know. At the moment, if Cucurella's not there, we've got a few options, haven't we? We've got the option of Renato Vega playing in that role. We've seen that Malo Gusto can be a left-back. And potentially, once Reece James comes back into this squad, maybe we'll see more of Gusto at left-back. So, for the minute, as much as it pains me to say, we're not really missing Ben Chilwell massively. And that's why you've got to rate this season a huge disappointment for Ben Chilwell. Now, let's move on to Tyreek George. He's had 65 minutes. This is a player that I was massively impressed by in pre-season. And now that I've seen the lack of involvement, maybe, for him, he's been in the squad 3 times. And that actually means that he's come off the bench every time he's been in the squad. So, clearly Enzo Maresca rates him as a player. But does he rate him for this moment in time? My guess would be probably not. And being that Tyreek George can play on the wing, and we are stacked in those areas now, especially with Jadon Sancho in there, I think that the best thing for Tyreek George and for Chelsea Football Club would be for him to get a loan in January. I'd love to see him maybe in Ipswich, maybe. See, sometimes the progression's not going to be as great for these players if they go to a team that are battered in relegation. So maybe a high-end championship team, something like that, that would be great for Tyreek George. Obviously, I can't rate him highly. I'd give him an average rating. We haven't really got a rating system here. I'm just getting it off my chest because I've missed you lot and I want to speak to you. Let's move on to Romeo Lavia. Romeo Lavia, he's had 84 minutes so far this season. It's a hard one. It's a hard one to really give Romeo Lavia a rating here because he came in, he started the opening day match against Manchester City. For me, look, mustard. And if you're American, you don't know what that is. Good. Mustard's good. It's English terminology. He looked mustard. He looked really, really good. He looked really good in pre-season. And at the moment, and we'll get on to Enzo Fernandez, for me, he's very loudly knocking on Enzo Maresca's door and saying, Enzo, me? Who are you picking? Because for me at this moment in time, once Romeo Lavia's back, I'd be picking Romeo Lavia in that role next to Caicedo in the midfield over Enzo Fernandez. But I know you guys, or some of you guys, feel that I've been harsh on Enzo Fernandez, so I do want to address that in this video. I would say, if we're speaking about the fact that he can't help the injuries, which is the fact, he can't, you're not in control of your body, and we've got no reason to doubt that he's not, treating his recovery and rehabilitation seriously. If he can't control the injuries, then I'm going to have to say he's starting the season well, because despite not being on the pitch when we've seen him, he's been really good. Let's move on to Mark Guehi. He's had 168 minutes so far this season. I'm going to say, and this sounds really, really harsh. It sounds really harsh. I am going to say disappointing so far for Mark Guehi, because I think there was a little time patch in there when potentially he was going to be the backup striker to Nicholas Jackson. Now we're seeing Nkunku is the backup striker to Nicholas Jackson. And is Nkunku even a number 9? Who knows? I don't know. You don't know. Enzo Maresca seems to know that he thinks he is, but I don't know. It's one of them ones, Mark Guehi, disappointing so far, because from what I was seeing of him in pre-season, I rated him. I rated his ability. I rated mostly his tenacity, ferociousness, pressing ability. We saw him nick the ball off of goalkeepers a few times. We've seen him do it this season. Was it Servette when he missed an open goal? So you'd have to say that so far this season, if you're a player like Mark Guehi, you're a young player, 18 years old. He's so young. If you're a player like that comes in, when given the opportunity, you need to take your chance. And I suppose, as much as Jackson's done it from time to time, if you miss an open goal, you've got to say that when you've been given that opportunity, you haven't taken that chance. So, a little bit disappointing, but at the same time, I want to remember that he was brought in for not a lot of money at all, and he's a young player. Probably needs a loan to develop, as a lot of these players do. So, not too harsh on him. Cesar Casadei at 180 minutes, and we've seen a little bit more of him recently due to his involvement in the Europa Conference League squad. Now, he started a couple of games. I think he started against Barrow, and he started the match where I was at against, who did we even play? Ghent. How can you forget Ghent? What a side. Casadei's been all right. He's been all right. He's been decent enough. Has he been alright enough or decent enough to put himself in the pecking order ahead of any of Caicedo, Enzo and Lavia? Obviously not. No. Has he been decent enough for me to want to see him in midfield as opposed to a Renato Vega? Possibly. Another young player who's just come in and can play in midfield? Probably not. So I'm going to give him an average start to the season. I think that maybe another loan might be necessary for him. He obviously looked decent at Leicester when he played, so maybe another loan might be necessary for Cesar Casadei. But I still think he's been decent enough. He's not been bad. He's definitely not been bad. One man who has not been bad. 263 minutes on the clock so far for this man. One of my absolute favourites in the Chelsea squad at the moment. It's 4 games so far, 3 assists, Jadon Sancho. Now, I've got to hold my hands up because there was a little bit that resurfaced of me recently where I spoke about Jadon Sancho coming to Chelsea, and I said, Jadon Sancho, are we that bothered about bringing him in? I rate him as a player, but do we need him? The answer's yes, we need him. We very much need Jadon Sancho. He's a great player. Absolute great player. So hard to dispossess off of the ball. So good at taking it one way and then cutting back. And when he cuts back, it's usually when he sees the man make the run, slots it inside, links up well with Palmer, links up well with Jackson, links up well with Enzo Fernandez when he's occupying that sort of left area of midfield. And the numbers speak for himself. You know, they really do speak for themselves. 3 assists already. I think that when it comes to breaking down teams that play a low block like Nottingham Forest did against us, he is going to be a man that is really, really crucial for us. Now, when we look at the player that has had about 20 more minutes than him, 283 minutes in João Felix, then we have to ask ourselves the question, where's João Felix at right now? Because he was bought in for, I'm not going to say big money, and in fact, if you compare it to the money that he's moved for in the past, it would be small money, but he was bought in for money nevertheless. Now, how well is João Felix faring? I don't know. There's been moments of brilliance so far from João Felix. A debut goal, that was great, linking up with his fellow Portugueseman. Is that a phrase? Pedro Neto, when he cut it back to him, João Felix smashes it home. There's also been the assist to Nkunku. What about that? Who was that against? Barrow. That was nice. Scooped it over the top. Loved it. So, moments of brilliance so far from João Felix, but I'd like to see a run at it, and I would like to see a scenario play out where he gives Enzo Maresca a real headache about whether or not he has a starting berth in the league games. And at this moment in time, until injury or suspension plays its role, you're not going to put him anywhere near Cole Palmer in the 10 space. Would you start him ahead of Jackson, Nkunku in the 9? I don't know. I've always spoke about the fact that is Jackson a natural number 9? Well, I think now we're seeing that he is. Is Nkunku a natural 9? Don't think so. Is João Felix a natural 9? Maybe more than Nkunku, but still don't think so. Then we look at the wing options. In an Enzo Maresca system, he really likes players that are able to dribble the ball, run at men. Jadon Sancho, Madueke, possibly ahead of him in the pecking order, Pedro Neto. So I think João Felix is the first one on here, despite me not being unimpressed in any way by his performances so far. He's the first one who you might say, okay, are you a player that's going to be coming off the bench in the league and starting the cup matches? And the answer to that is probably yes. So, I don't know. Where do you rate him so far? 24 years old. He's come in. He's made 7 appearances, 1 goal, 1 assist. I think that this is always an awkward time of the season to do a list like this, because the truth will be told when the story is told. And at the moment, we really don't know about how important he is going to prove to be to this squad. And that's what I'm looking at. Will he be important to this squad? We will see over time. For the minute, I'm going to say João Felix had an average start to life, or back at life, at Chelsea Football Club. Benoit Badiashile, he's had 360 minutes. You've got to say, for Benoit Badiashile, that it's probably a disappointing season, because I think that it's very, very clear that you are a guy for the cup matches right now. Now, at the moment, that's all well and good, because the cup matches are coming fast and thick. However, as we progress deep into these cups, and the carrot is dangled with the fact that we could actually win silverware here, what will Enzo Maresca do? Will he stick with the boys that got him there? Or will he think, no, hold on. I've got a chance to win a bit of silverware here, and therefore I need to go with my players who I really feel are going to deliver. And let's make no bones about it. He doesn't like calling it a B team, but it is a B team, because if they were good enough to be starting Premier League games, which is obviously the priority this season, they would be. So Benoit Badiashile is in the B team. And out of the B team defenders, he's not the first taxi off the rank for me. I would say that's Tosin Adarabioyo. So as much as Benoit Badiashile hasn't massively disappointed me or overwhelmed me in terms of impressing me, you'd have to say he's probably having a bad start, because he would hope to be closer to a starting berth, especially given the promise he showed in the first season that he came in. Am I being harsh? I don't know. You lot tell me. Philip Jorgensen, he's played 360 minutes. That 360 mark means you've probably started every cup match. So we're going to see a few guys on there now. Philip Jorgensen, I'm going to say he's having a good start to life at Chelsea. I think he's been good, Jorgensen. Really good in the matches we've seen him. But despite being really good, I still don't think he's done enough yet for me to say he displaces Sanchez. And ultimately, what more can he do, you know? Because he's made match-winning contributions, match-saving contributions in those games. Especially, I'm looking at that first game against Servette, where he made a few really good saves towards the end. So, without, Robert Sanchez really dipping in form, he's not going to get in that starting 11 either. So, again, Philip Jorgensen's one you'd have to say he's having a good start, but maybe not good enough. Let's move on to Tosin Adarabioyo. Now, I do rate Tosin Adarabioyo as a 27-year-old player. That's why I think he probably is the next taxi off the rank if, for example, injury or suspension occurs, which it is right about to, by the way. Because we know now that Wesley Fofana is not going to be involved due to a suspension through picking up too many yellow cards against Liverpool. And that is why Tosin Adarabioyo will come into that lineup for me. If you're looking at defenders and you're saying, who do you want there now? We've got Tosin, we've got Disasi, we've got Benoit Badiashile. For me, it's a no-brainer. It has to be Tosin Adarabioyo. So, being that I call him the first taxi off the rank, and being that I'm saying out of the defenders, he's the closest there to coming in, you'd have to say he's had a good start. Not good enough to force his way into the team, but with a squad this size, it's going to be hard for anyone to be able to. Let's move on to Kiernan Dewsbury-Hall. 1 goal, no assists in 7 appearances so far this season. Bearing in mind, he has had more minutes than a lot of the other guys so far. Ooh, he came in for fairly decent money. I don't want to jump the gun, and I thought that he was impressive in the last match against Ghent. I thought it was his best match in a Chelsea shirt so far, but I think even Kiernan Dewsbury-Hall would be lying to say, if he did say, that he feels that he couldn't have contributed a little bit more so far in this Chelsea side, especially with the elephant in the room is the fact that he's playing under his manager last season, where he was definitely Leicester's best player and easily one of the best players in the Championship. So will it come good for Kiernan Dewsbury-Hall, or will it be another one of the Danny Drinkwater style signings? I don't know. You lot tell me in the comment section below. I think there's a great player in there. Would he have been better served going to a Spurs or someone like that? Now, I don't want any good player to go to Spurs. I'm happy with them having all the rubbish ones. But would he have been better served going there? I think he would have got more game time maybe. But maybe I'm just looking at a James Maddison and making the comparison, because they both came from Leicester and they're both creative players. I would say underwhelming start to life at Chelsea so far for Kiernan Dewsbury-Hall. Let's move on to Axel Disasi, who's had 415 minutes so far this season. He's not in control of the amount of minutes he's given. All he can do is do what he's asked of on the pitch. And I'm going to say decent. I think Axel Disasi's been decent enough. I'm not saying there's not been a blunder or two in there, because there always is with Disasi. That's what you get from him. But yeah, decent enough. Made a good little assist the other night. I think he's been all right. Let's move on to Josh's boy, Mykhailo Mudryk. He has been involved in 8 games so far this season, 425 minutes, and I'm going to say it right now and hold my hands up. There's been an improvement. I'm seeing, and especially recently, by the way, because Enzo Maresca was asked about Mykhailo Mudryk at the start of the season, and he said we all need to work hard to get that improvement out of Mudryk. Well, I hadn't really been seeing it, but now I'm starting to see it in his delivery, in his judgment. He hasn't improved enough to be any better than second choice behind Jadon Sancho on that left wing for me. And if Noni Madueke is playing over on the other side, I'd probably have Pedro Neto ahead of Mykhailo Mudryk still. And that puts him at third choice on the left wing if Madueke's playing. So how decent is it? But there's definitely been an improvement. So I'm going to say decent. This start to the season for Mykhailo Mudryk. And now let's look at Christopher Nkunku, because he's played 430 minutes. That means he's been involved in every game he's been in the squad for. 11 games, 7 goals. which is really decent. It's a great return. He's been phenomenal in some of the Conference League matches, as you'd expect him to be. And I think that he'll continue to be a really, really important player for us going forward. But at this moment in time, despite Jackson not looking lively against Nottingham Forest in the first half, I don't think he's close to getting ahead of Nicholas Jackson at this moment in time. I think Nicholas Jackson shows better link-up play from the number 9 position with the likes of Cole Palmer, with the likes of Pedro Neto, Jadon Sancho, Noni Madueke. So then you would have to say that if we carry on playing with this formation and in this style, then he's not close to being a Premier League starter. He's always going to be coming off the bench, and that goes against him. But you can only really go on what they're doing when they're playing. And when he's playing, he's been decent. The goal return shows you that. Right, people, I just want to quickly take this opportunity to tell you about new partners of the channel, Squawka. When you're in the YouTube industry like I am, there is a certain type of service that you could very much do with having on your side. And that is the service that stops you making blunders. And when I'm preparing for some of my videos, I use the website Squawka to use the player comparison matrix. And that helps me get a better understanding of comparing the players that I'm talking about. For example, a lot of you guys know that for every Chelsea game, I put out my preferred starting lineup. And I do look into the underlying numbers of the players I'm picking and the players that I'm comparing. And that's where Squawka comes in. They offer the best player comparison matrix on the internet. The website is so efficient and so easy that even I can use it. For example, when I'm picking from Chelsea's 30 to 40 odd wingers that we've got at the club, I can very easily jump onto Squawka and see how their stats compare. But you don't need to be a YouTuber to need to use Squawka. You could use it for your bets when you're betting on first goal scorer and things like that. It could give you a better indication. Or you could just use it to look like a genius down the pub, and we all like to do that, don't we? So thank you very much to Squawka for not only helping me prepare for my videos, but also partnering up with the channel. So help support me by supporting the guys that support the channel in Squawka. They are linked in the description for this video. Let's get back into it. So you'd have to say decent, but I think Christopher Nkunku would admit that he would definitely feel like he should be in that first team right now. Pedro Neto, 441 minutes so far, 2 goals, 1 assist. I've been really impressed by what I've seen from Pedro Neto. A lot of people spoke to me about his injury record before he was signed. I hope he can stay fit, but I have been really, really impressed from what I've seen from him. I think he's had a great start to life at Chelsea Football Club. Another man, 487 minutes so far, 1 goal, 1 assist. I believe has had a great start to life at Chelsea Football Club. That's Renato Vega. Do you know what? He might be a poor man's Yaya Toure. They've got him here as a left back. I don't think he'll be playing left back all that much. He's not a left back, is he? I was seeing him as a box-to-box midfielder the other day against Ghent. He was great. He's a real good player, Renato Vega. And at 21 years old, we've gone and done it again, haven't we? There was a point in time when we didn't know whether or not these lot knew what they were doing with these signings. And now as time goes on, I'm not saying ones didn't come good, and that's a video in itself. If you want that, me and Josh will rate all of the signings under the new ownership so far for you. But a lot of these players are now starting to come good. And Renato Vega come in and hit the ground running. He's had a great start to life at Chelsea Football Club. Let's move on to Malo Gusto. 491 minutes so far on the pitch for the Frenchman. Decent. Very decent. Better than decent. Good. He's been good. He's maybe not looked all that comfortable in the role that he's been playing, which is obviously that inverted fullback role. I think he's better as a fullback going up the flanks, and his delivery is really good. And I think we haven't seen that delivery anywhere near as much as I would like to so far from Malo Gusto so far this season. But here's the key thing. When the system doesn't fit, you've still managed to get yourself in that team and you're on the pitch more or less week in, week out at the minute. Could that be due to Reece James' injury? Possibly. Very probably. But at the same time, you're on the pitch, aren't you? So you've got to rate it. You've got to rate it because there's players like Ben Chilwell who the system doesn't fit and he's not playing. Raheem Sterling, the system doesn't really fit and he's gone out on loan. So for Malo Gusto to retain his place, you've got to say that he's doing well at the minute. Another man, 555 minutes, who is also doing pretty well for me so far, is Nicholas Jackson. 9 games so far this season. No, sorry, 8 games. 8 games so far this season. 7 goal involvements, 4 goals, 3 assists. Very, very decent from Nicholas Jackson. A lot of the time, I think that people are waiting for the arrival of Nicholas Jackson when he becomes this 20-plus goal per season striker. It could happen this season. It might never happen. But what I know so far is that the boys that play behind him and to the side of him love playing with Nicholas Jackson. He makes those runs that they like, and he's also very intricate. His passing ability, his link-up play, all of that is great at this moment in time. So I'm very, very happy with him being our starting choice number 9. And I think there was a point last season when I would have been more unsure on that. So good start to this season. Noni Madueke also having a good start. He's had 576 minutes so far this season. He has played 8 times. He's got 5 goals. He was obviously the match saver for us the other day against Nottingham Forest. I've spoke about Noni Madueke at a bit of length. I think he's having a really good start to the season. And I think when you look at the fact that in the league he's in there ahead of Pedro Neto, it might ask you the question, why were these boys signed? But I think depth's something that we all need. And I think that as time goes on, you will see injury suspensions come in and things might start to make a little bit more sense. But at this moment in time, Noni Madueke is proving to be Enzo Maresca's probably most important winger. Definitely most important on the right-hand side. And there was a time when Cole Palmer was playing there when you were looking at Noni Madueke and thinking your life might be done at Chelsea before it even got started. Well, now I very much would not be thinking in that way. 593 minutes. We got my boy, Marc Cucurella. Great start. Great start to the season. I'm loving it. I've loved everything I've seen from him. And so far, despite the fact that he is part of that sort of flat back 3 and it's Malo Gusto inverting, if you look at his heat map, Cucurella's pretty much doing the same thing, you know. So often I'm seeing Fofana and Chilwell left there on their own, and it's not even a negative thing. They're not even, you know, there's been 1 or 2 mistakes there, but we're a young team. I can let them off. I'm happy with it. Cucurella really puts a shift in. I ain't got stats here for ground covered, but oh my God, there must be a lot, because so often the keeper catches the ball and there's one, as in the opposition keeper, and there's one man I can see sprinting quicker than every other player in this team, and that is Marc Cucurella, because he's getting up and down. He's getting up and down. He really is. The confidence is there. He's had a great start. Wesley Fofana, 597 minutes. He's obviously started every league game as the centre-back pairing to Levi Colwill. And I would say out of the 2 of him and Levi Colwill, he is a little bit lower in where I rate his start to the season, but I do rate it highly. And listen, the best ability is availability. And the fact that he's played these matches so far, and so far so good in terms of injuries, although he's now got a suspension, I'm happy enough with that, and I think that he's looking solid. And you lot need to remember, and everyone needs to remember, he's doing this off the back of 1 whole season on the sidelines. Imagine spending a season on the sidelines, then you're frustrating as the starting choice centre-back. It's not easy, and he's not making it look easy, but he's not making it look hard either. So there you go, good start to the season for him. Enzo Fernandez, 609 minutes, 1 assist. Oh, you lot are going to hate me here. You're going to hate me. I am going to say bang average start to the season for Enzo Fernandez. And I'm getting a lot of stick. You're calling it Enzo hate. I don't know where the hate factor is coming from. I really don't understand it. Because if we didn't have a player like Romeo Lavia that was hot on the heels of Enzo Fernandez and that I've been really impressed by when I had seen him, before you start typing, oh, he's had 1 game against Man City. He was really good in that 1 game against Man City. I watched him in pre-season. I watched him at Southampton. I think that Romeo Lavia is going to be a player for the next 10, 15 years. And therefore, what I would hate is a lack of game time to push him out the door towards the end of this season if he's not given it. And at the minute, say he comes back right now, he can't play in the Conference League. He hasn't been registered. So he can't play in the Conference League until the re-registration, which I think's New Year, so he's not going to be able to make any appearances in that. And at the minute, Enzo Fernandez is ahead of him in the team. Now, Enzo Fernandez himself, he hasn't been bad. I've never once said he's been bad. I said he's had, underwhelming games. But he hasn't been good either. He had the one good game against Crystal Palace. I think he was decent enough in that game. And obviously, in the game against Servette, I also think he was decent. But my main gripe with Enzo Fernandez is we never see the same Enzo Fernandez for Chelsea Football Club as we see for Argentina. And you could say to me, well, that's because Chelsea don't play like Argentina. But I just think that because he came in for a higher fee and because I saw what he could do in the World Cup and I see what he can do when he goes off on international duty, I do believe that there's a player in there. I really do, and I hold him to high regard. So when I'm underwhelmed by his performances, that's probably why I'm harsher on him. But you lot tell me. I'm going to say average. I'm going to say it's been an average start to the season for Enzo Fernandez. But I'm sure you'll tell me if I'm wrong. But please don't call it hate, because it's not hate. There's nothing I would love more than Enzo Fernandez to live up to the price tag and to be that player. And if I am going to give him some, some positivity around things, I would say that the pivot that looked like it didn't work last season in terms of Enzo and Caicedo does look like it does work this season. But to play devil's advocate, it's not really a pivot, is it? Because it's got Malo Gusto in there as well most of the time. Robert Sanchez, I'm going to say great start to the season from Robert Sanchez, because when you compare it to last season, it is night and day, isn't it? He's pulled off some really good stops so far this season. Has he made a howler? He's made one. He made one against Brighton, but he was making them week in, week out. I would say there wasn't a match that went past when he didn't make a serious mistake. So you got to say he's had a great start to the season so far, Robert Sanchez. Levi Colwill is another man that's had a great start to the season. 630 minutes he's had so far. He's been a mainstay in the defence. He's been the centre of the defence as well. I kind of thought he'd be out on that left-hand side, but that's more because I thought that Cucurella would be the man inverting a lot more. Levi Colwill's made a great start to the season. Cole Palmer, 9 appearances, 6 goals, 5 assists. I'm going to say it now. Cole Palmer is the best player on form in world football at this moment in time. Cole Palmer does stuff that I've only seen Messi, Hazard and a couple of other players here and there do. He's phenomenal. What about the little touch that got him round against Nottingham Forest when he had his back to goal? Cole Palmer's ridiculous. He's absolutely ridiculous. He's the only man that I can see stroll around the football pitch, and I will never want him to put in a shred more effort because he knows exactly what he's doing. The man is a genius, and he has had a phenomenal start to this season. There was questions, weren't there, that, now the league know what Cole Palmer does. Now they know to expect him. They'll foul him more. They'll double up on him. They can do all of that. But he's just too good. Cole Palmer is a footballing Einstein. The man is phenomenal. He's the best player on Chelsea's books at this moment in time, and he's also the best player we have had, in my opinion, since Eden Hazard. And we've won a Champions League since then. Is that not saying something? Let's be honest. Do you not think the same? I think it. Either way, Moises Caicedo, 727 minutes he's had so far. I think Caicedo's been great. I think he's been great. Now, with every player, you're going to be able to go, oh, about this time he gave the ball away. What about that time? There's going to be times they've given the ball away. There definitely is, because at the end of the day, we're playing a system where we play out from the back and we make those more risky moves and passes. But for the most part, what I'm saying here is, I spoke about Enzo Fernandez. Is he living up to the price tag? Probably not so far. Is Moises Caicedo? Well, when do you hear it mentioned? The media, right? The non-Chelsea fan side of the media, and even some Chelsea fans, let's be honest, love to stick the knife in. When do you hear anyone talk about Moises Caicedo? You don't. You don't hear them talk about him because he's not putting a foot wrong. And not only is he not putting a foot wrong, he's been really, really good. Really, really good. And at 22 years old, he's only going to get better. And this is the thing now when you look at things, the core of this team. Like, I'm going to put it out there. I'd be surprised if this team doesn't go on to lift titles. If the Man City dominance ends, right, and the next manager isn't able to just continue what Pep Guardiola is able to, or has been able to achieve with Man City, I don't know. I kind of feel like it's up for grabs, isn't it? It's whoever's ready at the time, and you'd say that Arsenal are the closest to it so far at the moment, but when you look at the core and the spine of this team that we're now developing, listen, I've said Robert Sanchez is brilliant, but are there still question marks over him? Yes, of course, there are still question marks there. Will he be the long-term number one at Chelsea? I can't give you a definitive answer on that. But will Levi Colwill be here for the long run? Yes. How old's he? Levi Colwill, 21. Okay, cool. Let's look at the midfield. Moises Caicedo, is he going to be in there for the long run? Yeah, he's 22. Okay. Cole Palmer, look how long his contract is. He'll just be in front. Is he going to be there for the long run? Yeah, he's 22 years old. 2. You know what I mean? We got Nicholas Jackson. We got Malo Gusto. We got all this young talent here that I think are going to be around for the long run. And when you look at Chelsea's recruitment, I'm going completely off topic now, and I know this is a really long video. Probably only the long-term and passionate subscribers will have even watched this one, but I'm happy enough because I've enjoyed speaking to you lot, and I'm getting a lot off of my chest here. But when I look at the recruitment, right, maybe we're even preparing for a transfer ban somewhere along the way. Maybe we know one's going to happen, or maybe we're thinking, do you know what, if it did happen, and we've got this sort of squad depth, and we're able to be balanced in the minutes as we are at the minute, then maybe it wouldn't even be the worst thing in the world. Maybe we could serve one. I don't know. Let's see what plays out at Man City. But there you go. There is my ratings of how every Chelsea player has started this Premier League season so far. So I'm really interested to start reading through the comments and to hear what you guys make of this video. I will see you all in the next one.